Hello and good morning to everybody that's on the call. We greatly appreciate it. And, I appreciate those kind words, Mike, but it also makes me sound pretty old as well. So, I've been around this community for now a very, very long time. So it's got to be 18, 19 years plus, maybe 20 that I've been involved one way or another with FEI. So I go back a long way. And I appreciate the opportunity once a year that the Overture group gets to speak on a topic to the career management group. This group means a lot to us in our firm. The career management group has always been great to us over the years. And today we get to speak on a topic that I'm very passionate about, and a subject that I greatly believe in, because this is a subject where I really feel the majority of companies miss the ball on when they're hiring new executives into their organizations. And especially when they're hiring financial executives into their organization. So the information we're going to be sharing with you today is information that we have compiled over many, many years of doing controller and CFO search to mid-size and privately held businesses. So there's some nuances we're going to share with you. There's actually tools that I would like to share with you, and I will, if you email me, and I'll talk about it at the end of the presentation. If you email me, I'll send you an onboarding template on something that we use with our clients as well. So with that, we'll start the presentation. Bill and I will be interacting back and forth, and whatever questions you have, please, throw it in the chat. Stop, ask questions as we go through this. I know there's a couple people on the call who also know the subject of onboarding very well. Right, Ron? I know you're out there. So Ron and I have talked about onboarding many times. And before I retire, Ron and I are going to put out a book on onboarding. So you heard it here. I don't know when that's going to happen, but Ron and I have been talking about it for many years. So with that, let's just jump right into it. Everybody on this call pretty much has heard about onboarding. Really, onboarding is a plan. Onboarding is a process to assist really in transitioning a new hire into an organization. It's a mechanism through which the new employee will really acquire the skills, behaviors that'll help them assimilate in an organization in a rapid fashion, where they're actually the company's seeing return on their investment a lot faster. This statistic still holds true over many years. 80% of all executive hires do fail within the first 18 months. And I'm not saying people get fired or there's turnover. That's part of it. However, when people are not properly, and executives are not properly onboarded into the organization, their productivity is not optimized. And so companies are not getting a return on their investment. What we've found out that only 20 to 25% of all companies have a comprehensive onboarding plan. It's amazing when we ask clients, do you have onboarding? They think they do, and it's nothing. And you'll see when we get into the presentation, it's a glorified employee orientation program. And as you can see, here are some key benefits if you have a very good onboarding process. Anything from it lowering the anxiety of the employer-employee, relationship early on. I mean, when there's a plan, we know when there's a plan, we reduce that. Also, employees, it's really important you make employees feel welcome. And again, the biggest one there, I really feel it accelerates a new employee's contribution a lot faster into an organization. And again, like I said, when we ask people, do you have an employee onboarding program? They said, oh yeah, we have an orientation program. That's not, there's real with it, with an orientation program, that's not real engagement. And what true onboarding is really getting the engagement of the new hire in a rapid fashion. So I preach this, and I've spoke to many organizations over the years on onboarding. You have to be proactive on onboarding. You can't wait for it to come to you. A lot of companies, like I said, they don't even have onboarding. So you have to make it your responsibility when you take a new opportunity and you're working for a new company, that you're working your onboarding plan and you take responsibility to onboard yourself into that organization and work with your new employer on building a very robust plan that's going to be very, very impactful. What does onboarding look like? Okay, we're going to get into pre-boarding, the stages of onboarding, and then what I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you a template and a roadmap to success on how to successfully onboard yourself as a financial executive in a new opportunity. And we're going to go through the different components of that as well. But before we do that, there's this thing called pre-boarding. Over the years, pre-boarding has taken on a new process of its own, especially what we've seen. And I'll give you an example here. With the pandemic, there's been some delayed starts, people accepting opportunities, and there's been delayed starts. Maybe it's a month, maybe it's 2 months. We had one that was 3 months. And boy, as a recruiter, when somebody doesn't start in that 2 to 3 week time period, my anxiety level goes very high, because there's a risk that you could lose that candidate to another opportunity, a counter offer, or many other external factors that you may not have control over. So we've made it a point here at the Overture Group, if there's an extended period of time where the start date is extended out from an acceptance, we want to engage the new employee, as fast as we can. And that's where we'll really get involved with pre-boarding, where we may take components of the onboarding plan and work it into a pre-boarding plan. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Bill Napolillo, who really knows a lot about this subject and has done a lot of research, and he's seen kind of some of the nuances that work with pre-boarding. So Bill, all yours.
Thank you, John. Could I get the next slide? What is pre-boarding? Has anyone ever walked into a job on day one and encountered this, where you really have to chase down IT or HR and really get bogged down in a bunch of administrative work that's not really related to your job? So basically, if I could have the next slide, please, John. Well, let's define pre-boarding. It's the period between an employee accepting their job offer and their first day of work. It's a subsection of the onboarding process, but you could consider it a bridge to onboarding. From the time that employee accepts the offer to the first day, you really need to be engaged with and I'm speaking from a company standpoint. The company really needs to be engaged with the candidate. And it'll do a couple things. You want to prepare the candidate for day one. You don't want a candidate to walk in on day one and not feel welcome. Feel overwhelmed, and worse yet, be inundated with things, administrative type work that's not related to their job. A lot of engagement during the pre-boarding experience really enhances excitement. Someone comes in with energy. Someone comes in wanting to really hit the ground running and start to add value. Can I get the next slide, John? I'm going to share with you a little bit about why it's important. I've done a little research, on this, and the information I'll share really shows why employers should have tremendous incentive to do pre-boarding. As John said, talked about the touch points, pre-boarding, losing someone to an offer, especially if there's an extended time between someone accepting the offer and their start date. Even if the time period is only 2 weeks. A lot of our candidates that we see, they're engaged with other interview processes, with other companies. And without any touch points, not only are they vulnerable then to counter offers, but they're going to keep going. They're going to keep interviewing. They're going to go deep in the process, and they may just take another offer. So the touch points are important. These are some of the reasons why a company really needs to be engaged during that pre-boarding time period. First of all, it's a key to strengthening engagement, which is what this is all about. Some research has shown an overwhelming amount of employees, 29% of the workforce, is reportedly is engaged. So companies need to get on board early in starting that engagement process. And the benefits are pretty clear. Employee engagement, higher retention rates to improve job satisfaction, better customer service, but it also increases productivity. It increases profitability as well. It increases value and growth, professional growth to the organization too. Using a pre-boarding process to initiate employee engagement is instrumental in creating a good culture. And a lot of the things I'll share with you today about pre-boarding from an employer standpoint, it's going to give you a good window into, well, what is this company culture all about? As we've seen at the Overture Group, a lot of employers talk a good game when it says, oh yeah, we have a great culture, but few could really define it. Few really know what it really is. And I'll get share more about that as we go on. In addition, new hires should understand the company culture and how they fit in. As soon as the job offer is made, I think that's pretty critical and self-explanatory as well. But employers need to use pre-boarding phase to share information about the company culture, policies, goals, missions, the work environment. This will just ease a new hire in before they even start the job. And I don't know how much we see of this. I would say some companies do a good job of this and others don't. It is known that pre-boarding, onboarding, and employee retention, well, they're all tied together. Great employee onboarding can improve retention by 82%, certainly lower turnover. And as we said, it reduces the risk of a counteroffer or the company continuing to interview with other companies and take another offer also. So this is what I'd really like you to focus on. These are some strategies that employers could use. And some of these you could be proactive on. Not all of them. So like I said, this will give you a window, though, in terms of a company's culture, in terms of just how they how engaged they are in terms of employee engagement. Buddy up to be employee. Now, it's nice if a company should assign someone. They say, Joe, if you have any questions in the next 2 weeks, contact me or contact so-and-so. But something that you could ask is from your hiring manager when you accept the offer. If I have any questions, who could I call? And see what they say. I would think most companies would want to give you someone to be a contact point at the organization. These are all things to prepare you for day one. Send a personalized email from the team and the new hire's manager, ensuring that the new hire feels comfortable reaching out with any questions. I don't know if I've ever received that, a email from the team, but I think that's pretty fantastic if during that pre-boarding period, an employee would receive an email from the entire team saying, hey, we're here for you. We want to make your transition smooth. Give us a call if you need anything. Certainly, sending around a company-wide email introducing you to the company, sharing a little about your work history, what attracted, why they hired you. Also, maybe your LinkedIn profile. And it helps because then people know who you are. I mean, how many of you have walked in to a company and someone says, oh, you must be the new guy down in IT or HR, or you're the new woman who just started here. They don't even know your name. So companies with strong cultures, they kind of pave the way for a new employee when they start on day one. I like this one here, invite them to an event. And that could be very simple things. It could be a lunch, it could be a video call. And a good way for you as a candidate to be proactive on this, I would say, is go on their Facebook page and their website and see if they have any events coming up. Could be they're all going to a food pantry this Saturday or whatever it is. And then you show up at the event, because the more faces a candidate sees prior to day one, that'll make day one much less daunting when you walk in the door. Prepare a goodie bag. I've seen a lot of this on the part of companies where they have sent company swag, or maybe even just an e-card or a gift card or something. A lot of companies that sell small consumer products, will send a box of items to the new employee. So just be aware of these things. These are all good touch points, and some of these you can be proactive on, but be aware if they're doing any of these things. How engaged are they during this pre-boarding period? Stay in touch before a person starts. John talked about this already. The more touch points you have, the better. And you could initiate some of that as well in terms of staying in touch with the hiring manager. But radio silence is really the kiss of death. That is where you can really lose candidates to either a counteroffer, or they just keep interviewing in the process and take another offer. So companies that are on top of the game, they're staying in touch. And I know we had a case with Joe and John where the pre-boarding period was like 3 months, this summer. Well, we were pretty engaged with the client and the employee. We had a lot of touch points, and sure enough, the employee started and is still there. So hopefully the client has then taken the onboarding process. And the employee, and John, we probably prepped this person to take some responsibility for their own onboarding, as well.
Yeah. No, we did that, and we made sure. I can't tell you how many times Joe Lopakinski was a project manager on that search. I can't tell you how many times I asked Joe, are they meeting? Are they talking? All throughout those 3 months of that delayed start period. Yeah, absolutely. It's scary. Anxiety went up.
I had a question come in, and as I'm trying to battle the sunlight coming into my face, a question came in, and I think this would take place either in the pre-boarding or very close to the start, sort of in this time where there's so much remote working. Would you recommend that a company uses like video or a big Zoom to make like a welcome introduction to the team, as a whole?
I think that's a great idea, and I think you should if you didn't meet your team members or current people that you wanted to meet in the interview process prior to starting a new opportunity, you could take this pre-boarding or this time before you start and engage with them and ask them if you can, set up some of these video calls. Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic idea. Nobody's got all the answers. We're figuring this out as we go to this whole new onboarding virtually kind of thing. But that's something that we have seen and we've recommended, prior to them starting. Again, it's the employee engagement. But again, I'm going to throw it back on everybody on this call. If you're taking a new opportunity, right, take it, be very proactive, and make those types of suggestions and build your own onboarding plan if you don't have one already. So hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, good question. Yeah. Was that it, Mike? Any other questions?
Yeah, right now that I feel like you guys haven't already sort of got to, yes. So,
okay.
And then feel free, people could send questions directly to me, like privately if you want me to ask them, or if you have a question and you want to ask it, directly to them via, audio, video, you can just let me know that too, and I'll let them know you're in queue and let you ask that question.
Very good.
Next slide, Bill.
Yeah, no, John, I'm going to just finish up here. Share your company handbook and benefits guide. Maybe a handbook might be considered too proprietary to send out. I mean, you could ask it, and if they don't want to send out a handbook, ask them for some light reading. Is there anything that they could send out just to prepare you for day one? Maybe it's a newsletter. They're generally there's something to help you transition on that first day. As far as the benefits, yes.
And Bill, real quick, that's a good segue also into when I build an onboarding plan. That's building company knowledge. You can start building your company knowledge very early on by getting the handbook, getting the benefits, getting any other strategic documents that you may be responsible for, brochures, maybe presentations. Maybe it's a product or a service and there's presentations on that. Get as much information as you can up front. So,
yes, thank you, John. As far as the benefits guide, though, if the only thing you hear from your new employer is they send you benefit information and first day forms to fill out, that's the bare minimum of pre-boarding. That doesn't do anything to enhance employee engagement. That's basically an efficiency thing, to have that first day just go better and faster. Yeah. But as you could see, there's a lot of things an employer could be doing. And I invite you, can I go back, John, to that? Yeah. I just invite you to try to get good, solid information like John said. And the last one, certainly an organization should send you an email containing your first day guidance. Well, what time do you start? Where's the entrance? Where's the parking lot? What's the attire? What do you need to bring? What's the arrival time? Things like that, where you don't have to be guessing, on your first day. I mean, my wife, and here's an example. My wife started a job earlier in the year with a law firm, and they sent her a calendar of her first 30 days of training because it was a 30-day training program. But it's extremely detailed, and they sent her a lot of things during the pre-boarding period. But the calendar was one of those things that it showed they were really organized. They were welcome. They welcomed her. They valued her. I thought it was pretty impressive. So these all will give you a window into a company culture, what they do, what they don't do. And on some of these, you could take the initiative as well. Okay, John.
All right. And just one other thing before we get into the stages of onboarding. Red flags go up if companies aren't helping you get engaged early on, if there's an expanded period of a start date. You better proactively make it your point to onboard yourself into the organization. So, all right, stages of onboarding. We'll get into a little bit about that. And then I'm really going to give you a template. So I want to be cognizant of time. I'm probably going to go through the stages of onboarding pretty quick. Week one, that's really the first impressions. Again, who welcomed you at the door? Did you go on the tour of the facilities? Did they introduce you to other folks around? Was your workstation prepared, right? And then that also gets back to what Bill was talking about. Was the company talking about their mission, vision, and values? In the first 30 days of your new opportunity, you're really starting to get acquainted, right? You're starting to set some goals. Your role, even though it may have been defined ahead of time, you're starting to define it more, and there may be some more responsibilities and accountabilities that you're seeing that you're taking on within the first 30 days as that role kind of evolves. Within the first 30 days, you're developing a cadence, you're developing kind of a method in which you're going to be working with your leader, and that relationship is very, very important. Also, what work groups are you going to be working with throughout the organization? That starts to come into play. You're starting to learn the organization's practices and procedures, and now you're really starting to understand, like Bill said before, is what they talked about in terms of culture-wise. Am I feeling that within the first 30 days? First 90 days. Now I'm starting to settle in a little. You're also seeing maybe there's some gaps in terms of a knowledge that you don't have that you need to get. So there could be some training opportunities, or you're learning systems. You're continuing to develop that relationship with your manager. You're seeing how you're fitting in now with your colleagues, right? Are you receiving formal feedback on a regular basis? And I'm going to show you with the template that we're going to give you that this is so crucial. If you're not doing that, there could be some surprises that really pop up. Also, you're starting to get some work done within the first 90 days. You feel that you're starting to be productive. Also, within the first 90 days, it always comes in your head, did I make the right decision to take this new opportunity? So that's what really happens in the first 90 days. Now, in the first 6 months, you start to become adjusted. You're developing more cross-functional relationships in an organization. The relationship in the cadence with your manager, supervisor, leader is now starting to be solidified, how they like to be communicated to. Because I can't tell you how many times, especially when I look at the CFO-CEO relationship, you may have a CEO that's out and about, and the way you communicate is going to be key, right? Because they're not in the office where you can walk down the hall, all the time to be able to communicate with them. So there's got to be a different pattern, but that is so crucial. Within that 6 months, you understand the cadence and how to really communicate with your supervisor. Now you're starting to measure expectations. Am I meeting expectations? Also, performance feedback. Are certain initiatives and or projects that I was supposed to be taking on within the first 6 months, how am I doing against that? And then from there, you have another opportunity after 6 months, if there's some gaps, to really develop now at a deeper level of development plan for you. But also at 6 months, you have some swag, right? You start to develop some confidence in your abilities to make contributions into the organization. All right. And then after a year, this is how you really should be measuring your level of engagement. The leadership in the organization. Who are the formal leaders? Who are the informal leaders? Who makes the roadmap? Who sets the vision? You're starting to get that. Your working relationships, and now you're really starting to get the company's starting to get a return on their investment, and you're really being productive. And also, you're going to see how you can grow personally and professionally within that organization. So that's really what happens after 1 year. We call it, at that point, you should be fully engaged in your new opportunity. Okay? So those are the stages of onboarding. Now I'm going to give you this template for success. And I'm especially going to key this for financial executives taking new opportunities in an organization. When we break down onboarding, we break it down into 7 components. The basic orientation, you still need to get that done. 2 is really building the company knowledge, understanding what a company does and how they do it. The internal relationships within the organization, the external relationships, because there's people that you'll be working with on the outside that'll affect your job. Also, understanding systems and key document knowledge, understanding how data flows in key systems. So if something breaks down, guess what? I know kind of where to troubleshoot. Also, when you're building a template for success in an onboarding plan, you want to set the key initiatives. What are those key initiatives and projects that you're going to be undertaking within maybe the first 6, 18, 24 months? This is what really brings the position to life. You should know what these are prior to accepting the role in the organization, right? Because, it's one thing to take a CFO role, but it's another thing taking a CFO role knowing that these are the things I'm going to be working on. These are the issues that the companies are having. This really brings those positions to life. And then again, the last component, and it's very, very crucial, role review and feedback, giving and receiving feedback, and make sure that's done on a timely basis. Okay. So the first one, basic orientation. That's everything. On the first day, filling out all the paperwork, knowing where the bathrooms are, all that other stuff. Getting set up on phones. I don't want to go through all of that. That's too basic, but that's important. But the second really is building the company knowledge, right? And you could also, again, think about building that company knowledge. If there is a longer period of time from when you start, you could start getting this information. Get all the company's products and services. Get their brochures. Understand, what those are, and get a deeper understanding. Any presentations that have been given, especially by sales, right? That will really help you understand exactly what the company does. Touring, right? If it's touring different offices, getting out, making sure those are scheduled and meeting those key folks in those different facilities. Also, getting to know who the go-to people are in certain areas, making sure you're meeting with them, okay? Very, very important. So that's really building that company knowledge. Third is the internal relationships, and it could be intermingled with building the company knowledge. But you need to make it a point to meet each department head or executive in the organization and gain. You may have interviewed with them, but you need to meet with them to gain a more in-depth understanding of the company and respects to the managers of those departments. Also, a lot of those folks have a lot of information, right? There may be a project and or some type of work that you're going to be doing to support those departments. Get the history. Also, I think, which is very important, is get a really good understanding that the department that you're going to lead, what is the reputation with those other departments around the company, right? Very, very important. So you know what you're in for, because you could be, you may have, the bar may be set high and you understand that, or hey, maybe there's no relationship, and this could be my opportunity to build a bridge to those different departments and areas, right? But make sure you're meeting with those department heads to do all that. I'm sorry, trying to move my thing around here. So that's the internal relationship. So it's very important you know who the go-to people are and meeting with them. For financial executives, this is very important. Your external relationship development, right? You need to meet with, and this is just an example, meeting with your accounting firm, your attorneys, your insurance brokers, especially if you're in charge of risk and maybe benefits, your bankers, any associations, and you notice I put FEI in there, by the way, first. But any associations that the company is involved with, any vendors and or system vendors, very, very important that you schedule time to meet with these external relationships. I saw Dan McHugh on the call. And I'm sure Dan can tell you how important it is when a new financial leader takes over in one of his clients, how important it is to get to know that new financial leader. You can meet with them, understand if there's any issues, all right, what the relationship has been like, what's the history, because again, no surprises. You know, from the accounting, you meet with your accounting firm, you meet with a partner, and in the interviewing process, you didn't know that there were 3 or 4 exceptions in the last audit. You'll be able to know that, so there's no surprises. But make sure you're meeting with these external folks so you can understand what the relationship is. I highly recommend that you take a half a day when you're a new executive in an organization to sit down and document how data flows through the system. Not that you're going to do something with that documentation, but this will give you a very good comfort level understanding how data is stored, how it's processed. Very, very important. Also, make sure that you get the key documents. And again, if you sign an NDA and you have a extended period of time before you start, you could ask them, hey, can you give me the company's strategic plan to go over? What's the sales and marketing plan? Any other key financial documents? As a financial executive, right, I want to get the last 3 years of tax returns. I want to see kind of what the issues are, there. Also issues, was there any issues with any of the audits that have been performed? Make sure you see quarterly and monthly financial reporting packages early on so you understand what that kind of entails. Any compensation or stakeholder agreements, especially if you're responsible for payroll and it falls under your area of responsibilities. Again, the employee handbooks, benefits, and compensation. Are there any loans and lease agreements that you need to know? Make sure you get to see these key documents. Also, if I were you, and this is a suggestion, when you're building your plan, building the plan, and when you're interviewing for the new opportunity, you need to know what the key initiatives are early on. What are those projects from the first 6, 18, 24 months that you're going to be undertaking? Because now you're going to start tying your performance in getting results to these key initiatives. And literally, and typically, when we're writing a plan, we're seeing probably 4 to 6, initiatives. And here are some examples: refinancing, doing an ERP implementation, developing KPIs. One that we always put on our onboarding plans is the evaluation, the departmental evaluation, understanding who's on your team and doing a departmental evaluation. So that's really, really key. But I would be asking these questions in the interviewing process and then incorporating those key initiatives into my onboarding plan. But again, I told you, this brings the position to life, right? And here's some more key initiatives that we put on here. This is, and I'm going to share with you a template, and this is kind of a couple things that we wrote in one of those templates, and you'll see that when I share that. 7, very, very important: receiving and having the opportunity to give feedback, right? And make sure it's done on a timely basis. I think there should be bi-weekly check-ins early on, and maybe that goes to monthly and then maybe bi-monthly and then. But I can't tell you how many times when I go to do a follow-up after 4 to 6 months, are you doing your check-ins? Are you giving and receiving feedback? Oh, we work together 24/7. We know everything about each other. Hell no, you don't. You don't, because you're not spending a specific period of time to give and receive feedback. Yeah, you may know what's happening with certain situations, but that's really not giving and having the opportunity to receive good quality feedback, so there's no surprises. And also, you're seeing along the way, whether you're meeting expectations or not, you're able to take this onboarding plan, right, and benchmark it against these feedback sessions and see how we're doing against that. So again, you could start building in performance management when you're doing these review and also feedback sessions, okay? All right, so I'm going to show you, and I have an onboarding template I would like to share with you guys and what it looks like.
John, I got a question. It's sort of, I think, is a good time because you mentioned having one-on-one meetings with your manager, and not falling into the trap of hey, we work together all the time, we communicate, and it sort of walks hand in hand with that. Where how frequently do you see your clients or companies that are hiring somebody not either take onboarding seriously or just not see the benefits to it? And then how do you sort of overcome that? Or even if they give you, like, here's the template, but then they don't really do the week, they don't really check in with you. They don't, how do you sort of break that barrier?
Yeah, and again, there's a number of companies that don't do it to this degree. And I think you need to explain to the company that you're going to be working for the importance of being properly onboarded. And then coming with, if they don't have a plan, coming with a solution and a recommendation how to do that. Now, if a company balks at this, right, and they say, you know what, we don't want to do this, to me, that says something, getting back to what Bill talked about earlier, is the company culture. And you have to make sure that your values and what you value aligns with the company, what they value. So I would bring this up if no one's talked about it in the interviewing process prior to accepting a position, see how accepting they are of properly onboarding into. And if they're not, doesn't mean you don't take the opportunity, but you have to weigh, do they value what I value? Is there a match here? And if there's not, is there a disconnect that I can overcome? In understanding I may not overcome that and I'll be okay with it. That's something you'll have to make the decision. But ask those questions early on, because you'll be able to engage, you'll able to gauge kind of what the new company's thought process is to new ideas and bringing something new into an organization. Long-winded answer, sorry about that. I'm being very cognizant of time as well. Anything else, Mike?
A couple, but I think we could probably hit them at the end.
Okay, we'll hit them at the end. And this is what the template looks like. It's very thorough. You have your action items, and it gets into those components of the onboarding that we talked about. You start setting time. When are you going to do this? And then you could start putting in comments. And then once you complete it, completed comments. But this gives you kind of a roadmap to what it really looks like. Talking about communications, we're talking about systems, documentation, vendor relationships, that's your external relationships, key documents to review, right? This one gets a little bit deeper. Outside also, we talk about the outside folks that you're going to be meeting with, and also groups probably, feedback. And then here are the key initiatives. So I have this template, very simple. I like to keep things very simple, but this is something I could share with you. Want to email me, I can give you a copy of this and you can use this. But here's some of the takeaways. But one area I wanted to also, last thing I want to talk to you about that I feel is very, very key in your onboarding is after 6 months, I would talk with my new supervisor or leader. And a lot of times it may be the CEO that you may be reporting to, and ask them what their thoughts are on you doing a 6 months observations report. And the reason for this observations report is in that 6 month period, you really have the eyes and ears of an outsider and you're able to look at things a little bit different, because after 6 months, you're probably drinking the Kool-Aid, okay? And this observations report should only be for your eyes and the eyes of your boss. That's it, unless you both agree on, hey, let's take this report and do something else. I would keep it simple. 4-6 pages of bullet points, right? But this is where you're able to identify for the organization early on what you perceive strengths, weaknesses, and any issues that the company might be having, okay? And this is just a recommendation of different areas that you may want to report on, whether it's strategy, culture, business process, how they make decisions, systems, sales, customer service. These are things that you may want to report on and give to your boss of your perceptions of what those strengths, weaknesses, and maybe opportunities as a financial leader in the organization. But when this, I can tell you right now, experience has shown with my clients, most of my clients are very willing to do this because they don't know what they don't know, right? They've been running, or maybe they've been owning a company for a very long time, and they appreciate these observations literally from their new CFO or their financial executive coming in. Because again, they've already been drinking the Kool-Aid. You're not drinking it yet, so you're taking a very objective approach. But this is something that you should really think about doing in the first 6 months as this observations report. Okay, so with that, that's what we wanted to talk about onboarding. I kind of gave you a lot in a short period of time here. But again, a lot of the stuff we just shared with you guys are stuff I've been specializing in financial executive leadership search for the last 20 years in a middle market company. This has come with a lot of knowledge from things we did right, things we didn't do right. And so we've been able to tweak this over the years. So, and again, I have no problem sharing this. If somebody wants to email me outside of this presentation, I'll just email you an example of what that looks like. So with that, I'll take a couple questions if they're out there. Mike, what do you got?
So when you said executive, and I know a lot of this is geared towards executive onboarding, what titles, are you talking about in addition to C-level people?
So, directors, controller, I'll keep it financial for right now. Directors, controllers, leaders, managers, okay? However, what you could do with this template and this plan, and some of our clients do this because they have a roadmap and then they can customize it not only to certain levels, but different disciplines. You may be able to use it in operations, sales, in other types of areas around the organization, you'll be able to use it. But then you could customize it also to the level. So this is something that has been very customized to financial leaders, this presentation, because of who's on the call. But I know a lot of my clients who don't have a robust onboarding plan have taken some of the nuances from the information that we share with them and then also customize it in different areas for different levels.
What do you recommend after you start a new position in terms of like communication, or if there's any tools or just ways to keep track of communication with the recruiter or executive search firm that you worked with to place you, or any coaches, just anyone else who's sort of helpful, and directly related to the company you ended up at?
Once a search firm places you, they're done. They may do follow-up, but it's your responsibility. Don't put anything on anybody else to do any follow-up communication. A lot of times what happens is, especially with search firms, you're so used to using them as the in-between during the process that once somebody starts, they're coming back to you. Don't do that. Don't use that as a crutch. You use that as a crutch, you are going to fail miserably with communication with your boss. In terms of tracking, I like the document that we have to track kind of the onboarding and kind of assimilating yourself into the organization, because it's a working, breathing document that could be changed. It's a work in progress, right, or process, or whatever you want to say. So you could use that as a tracking tool as well. But don't, communication, I always say, communicate. Make sure there's no surprises. Talk to your boss, on a timely basis, very much. And that's why when I showed you the stages of onboarding, you're learning how to communicate with your boss throughout the periods of time, and that's going to be extremely important.
And I want to thank both Bill and John, for the presentation. It's very helpful.